The resources that we want to talk about today, I'm going to bounce around here a little bit, are pretty much the ones I would cover are on the back of your program. Take a look at the back, there's some websites. I would put a number 1 next to SD Imperial County Red Cross. I would put a number 2 next to San Diego Office of Emergency Services. I would put a number 3 next to ARRL, that's the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. I would put number 4 next to San Diego Ham Classes. And number 5 next to CERT, but not just San Diego City CERT, which I believe is the address that's here. I would be looking at San Diego County Office of Emergency Services and the 30-some CERT programs I believe they have, because they cover the entire county, not just the city of San Diego. We need to work with the Office of Emergency Services, also provides, I believe, mass shelter training and a few others. I've not had experience with the Office of Emergency Services training. I've taken most of the Red Cross training over the years. But Office of Emergency Services is going to have overall control of the event, or support of the event. There will be an incident command center somewhere, and there will be an incident commander, and the rest of us are going to be plugging into that program somehow. If you have something to write with, please write down these 4 numbers. It's IC 100, IC 200, IC 700, and IC 800. These are FEMA trainings, incident command trainings, that everyone should take, whether you're going to be a shelter worker or not, because these will explain to you how any disaster operation is going to be ran. If you take the CERT training, you get this. If you take Red Cross training, you get this. You get these trainings. It's pretty much required by everyone. Salvation Army requires it. Everyone else does, because it's just a groundwork or a framework that's very flexible for us all to plug into. Okay, going down my list. Amateur Radio Emergency Service. Amateur Radio Emergency Service, as it exists today, exists to help others be able to communicate. The recommendation is that every organization have their in-house communications capability. The church has its own. The program over in the chapel right now is on the emergency response communication system. I'm part of that. Several people in the room here I recognize as amateur radio operators are part of that. That'll be how the church does it, but okay, we can talk to the church. But what if we need to talk to the Office of Emergency Services? How do we do that? That's where ARRL and ACS RACES come in. Okay, the other thing ARRL does is, for those that do have an amateur radio license, they will teach you how to use your equipment. They don't care who you're going to serve. The idea is to help the community, something we should be doing. Okay, number 4, San Diego Ham Classes. Again, for essential communications. Some people in the room can tell you that I started out providing licensing classes at church buildings. I was first asked by the El Cajon Stake to give a class, because, hey, I was the Bishop Storehouse radio station manager, I should do that thing. Several of the folks that were in that very first class are here today. One of them is my stake president. We had such a high return rate that the exam team that came in asked, can you open these to others? We did. We started teaching licensing classes at LDS buildings. Why? Because the church would allow me to, as long as we met certain criteria. And then the exam team would come in and we'd have 20 or 30 people licensed. Sometimes only 1 or 2. Sometimes, I think the largest class we had was at the Salvation Army, 50 people got licensed. Okay, that has, as I moved on in my career and to other tasks within the amateur community, we handed that off to a group that now goes by San Diego Ham Classes. Just Google that, SanDiegoHamClasses.com. They are not members of the church, yet they follow the protocols and they get permission to use church buildings to teach ham classes throughout San Diego County. And if you want a class and it's an area they don't really want to drive to, give me a call, I'll do it. Okay, those are some of the resources. The other resources that are here are all good. The Animal Rescue Reserve and San Diego, Animal Rescue Reserve and San Diego Humane Society. In an emergency, you're always going to have a problem with panicked pets, panicked other animals that are not necessarily pets. These are the proper people to help you to deal with them. They too will need volunteers. Okay, going back to community resources, another program that's here is called VOAD, the Volunteer Organizations Active in Disasters. The church is a member. Our public affairs people attend those meetings on a regular basis. Some of those other organizations, they're all non-governmental, some may have resources for training that we want to talk to. I heard Mr. Rosen talked about the Church of the Brethren offering childcare. Now, we think, oh, we know how to take care of kids. We all got kids. But there are lessons they've learned that things in a disaster may be different, so you want to listen to their advice. Just like you want to learn how to run a shelter from the Red Cross, as I guarantee you, the Red Cross has seen just about anything and everything in a shelter. You know, we don't like to talk about these things. I've done security for a shelter because we had issues where we had to house people with certain predilections, certain social issues. We had to house them with other families, but we had to keep them separate and keep an eye on them in a Red Cross shelter because you have to cover everyone. Okay, again, I can't say enough. Go to these websites. Go to the Red Cross. Again, it's the second one down. Label that number 1. Look for training opportunities for members of your congregations. The Red Cross, I don't know how the volunteer base is now, but they can always use, it turns over. I mean, I was one for a number of years, and then circumstances I had to go away. Someday I'll go back. One thing I can tell you that you will find with volunteers for your shelter teams, if we develop shelter teams for use at our church buildings or whether you'll use the high school next door, the comment was you want at least 15 because some of them won't be able to show. The training I remember said that of the regular Red Cross volunteers, those that come to meetings every month, that take all the training, that stay current, for any given disaster, 30% will be available. The rest, got to take care of kids, have work, they're out of town, they're sick, or whatever. Then you have another disaster, 30%. Not the same 30%. They're all out of the 100% of volunteers. So you have to have depth. You can't have just enough for a shift. You have to have 3 deep. Okay. Again, I guess what I should be asking is, what resources do you have questions about? What are you looking for that you haven't been able to find? Yes, ma'am.
Well, the CERT training, that's not, has anything to do with Red Cross, right? That's different.
Okay, CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, is different than Red Cross. I've taken CERT through what was up until last month was called San Diego Rural Fire CERT. CERT training gives you a combination of trainings, light search and rescue, triage, light first aid, a few other things to help in your immediate community. I would highly recommend members of the church go get CERT training and participate in those local CERT teams. There's several reasons for this. One, just helping, okay. Lane Jensen over here is a former bishop from, was Mira Mesa first or Mira Mesa second? What are the responsibilities of a bishop in an affected area? Are they responsible just the members or everybody? Well, okay, responsible for everyone. Did we not hear this morning, President Davis, I know him as president, because he was president of San Diego State for a while. President Davis said that our food storage, our supplies are going to be not just for us, but for our neighbors. Why? Because the stake presidents and the bishoprics are responsible for everyone within their geographical boundaries. It may be hard to turn your supplies over to the bishop. I'm going to struggle with it, but I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to struggle, but I also know I'm going to do it. Again, part of that is get to know your neighbors. A CERT program is a great way to do it. A CERT program is a great way to understand how to be part of the people that are helping out, how to go in on the first wave, because your fire department is going to be overwhelmed. On your first wave, go into various homes, check on people, make sure they're okay, give them first aid if they need it, notify people if they're beyond need, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's different than the Red Cross. It's usually, CERT is typically either a fire department or a fire safe council sponsored organization. But it is a resource that will be helpful. You will learn things on safety and so on that you wouldn't learn otherwise. Resources for amateur radio licensing, because that's come up a couple times. Again, SanDiegoHamClasses.com is a place to start. If you can't, if they teach one class a month roughly. They teach anywhere from 9 to 10 entry-level classes a year, 2 upgrade classes to what's called a general, and then 1 extra class a year. But they don't go everywhere. I mean, they put a lot of time and effort into it, so they may want to not go too far north or too far east. I go out to Imperial County once a year to teach a class. And Ham Academy just followed the instructions to drill each and every question. Takes probably 3 or 4 hours to go through them all. And then there's an exam offered somewhere in San Diego County every Saturday morning. And there's one up in San Marcos the 3rd Wednesday night at, of all places, which building is that? South of 78 in San Marcos. No, Felicita, no, this talking San Marcos. This is, okay, let me go through this. The first Saturday of the month is at the First Lutheran Church in El Cajon. Second Saturday of the month, these are all like 9 a.m., is at the Carlsbad Safety Center. That's the police department in their conference room. The third Saturday of the month is at the North Park Recreation Center, and they're looking for a new site. The fourth Saturday of the month is at the Bonita building. That's down on Valley Vista Way and Bonita Road, LDS Church building. The last Saturday of the month is at the Felicita building. That's Harry Hodges' team, and that's whether it's the 4th or 5th, it's always the last. And then there's a new group, I believe it's the Tri-City Area Amateur Radio Club, is a new club, is now sponsoring one out of LDS building in San Marcos. And
Woodlands and El Norte?
no, I've taught classes there years ago. No, there's another one that's west of there. I'm trying to think what road it is not Melrose. Maybe it is Melrose. Is there a building on Melrose? Vista. Okay, Vista Steak. But I blur the lines. I'm from La Mesa, so I blur the lines, you know. But it's at the Melrose building the 3rd Wednesday of every month for an evening for those that can't make Saturday mornings. Okay, again, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service teaches a get on the air type class for those of you that, what do I do? You don't even need to own a radio. Just come down and we'll teach you how to use a radio, and that helps you decide what you want to get. The frequencies you need to tune into, I don't have them memorized. If you go to SCIRA, SCIRA.org, I think, is it Southern California Intermountain Radio Association, is pretty much what covers Southern California. They have a list of frequencies that they would be using. SCIRA, Southern California Intermountain Radio Association. They're having the discussion on the other side of the partition. I know that locally, the repeater that was owned by the church and for 30 years, and they just replaced it with a new one, but the agreement is still in place, is the Palomar 147.075 with a plus offset and a 107.2 CT CSS. That's a subaudible tone for those that don't understand. But that was actually a church-owned repeater. The old one was. The brand new one is paid for by the Palomar Amateur Radio Club. Lane, do you have the local SCIRA frequency or repeater for the Bishop Storehouse? Okay. Now, One thing you need to understand, a repeater is a mountaintop relay radio that lets us talk a long ways. How many stakes do we have in the storehouse region? And 2 of them, I believe, Murrieta and Temecula, are at the base of Palomar Mountain and can't talk to the radio on the other side because the mountain's in the way. So we have, 13 stakes in the county, in Imperial County, that can communicate with this device. A 5-minute conversation for each of those takes how long for a report? You have to have other means to talk from the ward level to the stake level, and then use the repeater for those that can't talk directly to the stake. Okay, again, I can't implore you enough to go volunteer or go at least take the training with the Red Cross, if not volunteer with them on a regular basis as well.